I've come to realize, and I'm integrating it more and more, that, and this is the way of Tantra, this integration of opposites and dualities, that these splits that we have in our mind. So this idea that worldly success and spiritual success can't be together. And so now I'm at this place where living a life in the world, which is also spiritual, and it's spiritualizing everyday life, worldly life. So success can be interwoven, like financial success coming from spiritual inner alignment.
Yeah.
Where money comes in a dynamic, harmonious way that's in service to others, and you do your best not to do any damage along the way. And so that's my idea of worldly success. And it's a holistic inner and outer success, relational success. It includes everything.
Welcome to the Power Plant Body Podcast. This is a project that centers around interviews with people who are affecting change in their local and global communities through conscious movement and exercise, mental, emotional, and spiritual work, and plant-based nutrition and lifestyle practices. Today, I'm speaking with Ross Mckeachie. He's a holistic personal development coach with a practice on the beautiful Sunshine Coast in British Columbia, but he also coaches and guides clients around the world with his online coaching. His company, Integrative Coaching and Healing, guides and supports people in their own healing and evolution emotionally, mentally, and spiritually. Now, I've had the good fortune of knowing Ross since our early days together when we were at the same high school. And he's always been he's been a pretty hilarious guy to be around. He has this incredible ability to bring laughter into just about any situation, and always in the most fitting of ways. In fact, he found stand-up comedy shortly after we graduated, and he's damn good at making you laugh, so he did really well with that as well. But most recently, Ross entered back into my life when I took one of his yoga classes last year. The class was specifically targeted towards men, and I'll admit that when I first signed up, I thought we were going to be doing your typical yoga, stretching and oming and all that kind of stuff. But it turned out to be a much more involved and a deeply integrated experience. Both myself and every other man in that class received a powerful dose of self-reflection, self-love, and glimpses into the inner workings of our hearts, our minds, and our spirits. Now, I'm going to let Ross tell you more about what all this means and how getting in touch with who you are, and who you are, I mean from a moment-to-moment basis, and how that understanding of oneself can be threaded through into the future to bring about holistic wealth, both spiritually and worldly. I'll let Ross do that because he does it much more eloquently than I ever could. Ross is wise beyond his years, he's humble beyond measure, and one of the most magnetic teachers I've ever had the opportunity to learn from. He says what he means, and he means what he says. Now, I know you're going to get a lot out of this conversation, because, well, I certainly did. So without any further delay, I bring you Ross Mckeachie. All right. How's your mic working?
I think it's working pretty good.
Oh, you have a bit of a halo going on because of the sun behind you.
Oh, sweet.
Yeah, perfect. Very fitting. So thanks for joining me, Ross.
Thanks for having me, Taylor.
Yeah. Now we got to figure out how to. We're on a friendly conversation level before, and now I'm all nervous because I'm interviewing you. So
right now it's formal.
Yeah, it's formal. Yeah. How do we get past that?
Well, I'll just tell you, just be yourself.
Okay. I'll that.
It's the classic advice.
I appreciate the advice, the wisdom, sage wisdom. So I know who you are. You and I went to school together, and I've been fortunate enough to take some of your men's work yoga classes, and so I know what you do. But I would love for you to let the listeners know. Okay.
My work is basically doing my best, and I'm still a baby in this realm. Mm-hmm. Doing my best to help guide and support people in their own healing and evolution as human beings across the spectrum of what that entails. Mm-hmm. When I say healing, I mean emotionally, mentally, healing those impressions and wounds and things from the past, releasing them from our system. Often it's stored on the cellular, physical level as well. And when I say evolution, I mean evolving our consciousness, which means our perception of who we are and what the world is and how we relate to both of those things. How do I relate to self and other? And what is my living embodied perception on what that means?
Nice. Mm-hmm. Wow. There's a lot in there. A lot to unpack. So before we unpack that, why don't you let us know what it was that incited that? What is it that drives you to pursue that, to teach it to others, and what kicked that whole thing off?
I mean, without getting into my whole life story, let's just say, I guess from a young age, I had a propensity for the mystical side of life, which in my eyes is every part of life. Mysticism. It is a mystery. When you really contemplate life and everything that's going on, you get down to a point where there is this element of mystery you can't explain. And I've always had that connection. I've also had this connection with sort of the magic side of life, the animals, nature, and this sort of what they call the divine feminine side of things. I guess at some point in my life, I was suffering enough that I needed, and I had a low tolerance for suffering, I guess. I didn't last long before I thought there's got to be a better way. And that's usually how people get into looking deeper or doing some sort of personal work. You know, it's like, there's got to be a better way. This is enough pain. And so I started reading and exploring and I got back into writing, which I'd done as a kid, and that helped put things right in front of me. Like, this is what's happening. This is my inner process. And I know you're big on journaling too, which is great. You put your thoughts right in front of your face. And then at some point I had some experiences, what they would call mystical experiences, or, you know, and which is just part of life. It's part of our evolution. You have these expansive experiences. And I had it last long enough and had it happen enough times that it became, oh yeah, this is real, and I'm not who or what I thought I was. And I'm actually unified with life in this subtle way that makes me feel like my goal is I want to be in that state all the time, this blissful, expansive state, but I also want to be able to love everyone. And since then, I wasn't able to, of course, keep in those states, but since then I've wanted to do everything that I can to nurture that in my life and to help other people nurture that in their lives and to have worldly success. That's all part of it too.
Yeah. And what does worldly success mean? Because success is measured many different ways.
Well, often there's a split in people's minds between there's spiritual life, and you go down this in most people's minds, and that's you could call it the more masculine spirituality, where it's like monastic, renunciate, very austere conditions, and that's the spiritual life. And you renounce the world, quote unquote. You're still in the world. It's just a different setting. You put yourself in a monastery or whatever, you know. And then there's the worldly life, where you're making money, you're building a career, you're having a family, or, you know, you're having material possessions, you're enjoying all the sensory stuff. You're not holding back from any of that. So what I've come to realize, and thanks to my teachers that I've had, I wouldn't be where I am without good guidance and support and mentorship, as I'm sure you know. I've come to realize, and I'm integrating it more and more, that, and this is the way of Tantra, this integration of opposites and dualities, these splits that we have in our mind. So this idea that worldly success and spiritual success can't be together.
Yeah.
And so now I'm at this place where living a life in the world, which is also spiritual, and it's spiritualizing everyday life, worldly life. So success can be interwoven, like financial success coming from spiritual inner alignment.
Yeah.
Where money comes in a dynamic, harmonious way that's in service to others, and you do your best not to do any damage along the way.
Yeah.
And so that's my idea of worldly success, and it's a holistic inner and outer success, relational success. It includes everything.
Very holistic.
Yeah.
I like that. There's that quote that gets quoted all the time from the Bible, which is money is the root of all evil. But I guess the real quote is the love of money is the root of all evil. There's this separation between having wealth in finances, having wealth in the physical world, and having wealth in a spiritual experience. Where do you think that comes from?
first of all, I'd like to say maybe evil is the root of all evil.
Yeah.
Unconsciousness, greed. I don't even think the love of money is the root of all evil. It depends how you interpret love. I'd say more accurate would be attachment to money, or making it overly important in your life can lead to negative experiences and you take negative actions.
Yeah.
My teacher, Maitreya, who's a yogacharini from South India, who I've trained, and she continues to be my guru, but not in the pedestalized sense that we think in the West. She's like my spiritual elder sister. She's you've met her.
Oh yeah. She's great.
Like, yeah. I love her quote about money. She says, one should be mindful of money, not money minded.
Oh, I like that.
Right. So we need to use it. We can even love and appreciate and play with money and use it for good things. But, if we're only money minded, then we miss a huge spectrum of other things, and we create a wake behind us. Did that answer your question?
It did. Yeah. If it looks like I'm confused, it's because I'm staring into the sun. I'm going to actually close that blind really quickly.
Okay.
The siren is down there. Crazy.
Yeah.
And Gibson's not having.
Yeah. I hear sirens once in a while. It's a bigger deal when you hear it over there. Yeah. You might know somebody who's got hurt. I used to live not far from here, like, what is it? Pender and Abbott, like right where the gates to Chinatown are.
Oh yeah.
Yeah. With my friend Jesse.
Stretch.
Yeah. I only lived there for about 4 months, but and I remember the sirens and the screaming all the time.
Yeah. It's real.
Yeah.
It's real. Real
here. People having.
There's a guy, down at Victory Square, which is just down there, and 5:00 a.m. on the nose, screams at the top of his lungs. He's like a rooster, like on the clock every morning, 5 a.m. That guy's screaming at the top of his lungs.
Really?
For like 30 seconds, and then he's done.
Well, that's nice. You don't have to have your phone in your room then for your alarm. You can just.
I think he's doing everyone a favor.
I agree.
Yeah. And no one. I think of all the money people could save on alarm clocks.
The city should be paying him.
Well, maybe they are. Maybe the town. Who knows? Maybe he's on the payroll.
Didn't there used to be someone called a town crier?
Yeah, that's him.
I don't know what they did. But.
Yeah, maybe that's him.
Yeah.
All right, so went off on a bit of a tangent there. That's fine.
That's good. I'm sure the listeners will appreciate that tangent.
Oh, definitely. So you mentioned the way that you're going about life right now is to try to have this as holistic an approach to life as possible, where you're creating wealth in all arenas of your life, both spiritual, through relationships, through money, through objects, whatever you believe would add value to your life. That is the wealth that you're looking to create in your life. Did I get that right?
That's true. And my beliefs on what will add wealth and value to my life are always changing.
Yeah.
Right. Yeah. What I know in my deepest core is that the ultimate happiness and satisfaction comes from being in touch with the mystery. There is a direct experience of this. Whatever you want to call it, source, divine, God, doesn't matter what you call it, Tao, the infinite. There is that experience. And there is the experience of it where it's transcendent of the body. And then there's also the experience of bringing the power and consciousness of the mystery into your body. And to me, that's the work I'm doing now through this, with the help of my teacher, Maitreya, yoga and tantra, which is spiritualizing, they call it, the body, bringing consciousness, making every cell of your body alive and inspired, And so that means health in every regard is important. How you manage, and I know you're big on a lot of this stuff, how you manage your sleep and your food and all of your activities. Everything is food, basically, right? We're taking it in, whether it's emotionally, mentally, physically. So the things that are going to make me happy are the things that are aligned with that. Yeah. And in Tantra, and I'll caveat all this by saying again, I'm a student. We're all students, right? But I'm like, when it comes to, if I use the word tantra, for instance, I'll just caveat for all the listeners, I'm a baby in my understanding of this.
Okay.
But here's a concept that is really useful. Dharma, artha, kama, moksha. There's something called a yantra, or often in a mandala, there will be a central thing. And there's giving a simplistic explanation. Always there's 4 gates around it. Mm-hmm. And a yantra is used as something you concentrate or meditate on. And it's a vibrational image that helps you to imbibe or invoke into yourself that particular vibration.
Okay.
So let's say I want to invoke and manifest abundance. Mm-hmm. There's a particular Lakshmi yantra that represents that. Okay. Around any yantra, whatever it is, there's these 4 gates. And the first gate is Dharma.
Okay.
Some people translate Dharma as one's duty, but a nicer translation, the simple way I like to describe it is your natural place in the unfolding of nature. Yeah. Like a bird has its particular role. Yeah. A worm, a tree, a leaf. We're part of nature, not separate. Yeah. So we have a Dharma, a role that we're here to play. That's number one. We need to be aligned with our Dharma if we want to manifest something. The second gate is Artha. So Dharma, Artha. Uh-huh. Artha is material, worldly success. So if we want to be able to manifest things and live a full life, a spiritual life even in the world, we need to have some semblance of material success. We need to have food. We need to have shelter. We need to have clothing. You know, there are all these needs. And then we're humans. It's nice to enjoy. We have, we get to do that. Mm-hmm. The third gate is kama, which is desires, including sexual desire, fulfillment of our desires. Yeah. And the final gate is moksha, liberation, which is the goal for the human life.
And what does that mean? Because I've heard that word moksha before.
Moksha. Yeah, moksha, M-O-K-S-H-A, loosely translated as liberation or freedom. Yeah. So, but in the sense that moksha is talking about, it's not talking about the freedom to do whatever you want. It's talking about the freedom to liberate yourself from what they call the Maya or the illusion of the world. It's not actually an illusion, but when we're completely identified with this self that we're appearing as, Ross, Taylor, and that's the ego, but the ego is not a bad thing. It's just, it's a natural part of nature to have a sense of self. But as we build a healthy ego and we are living our Dharma and we are having worldly success and we are fulfilling our desires, we're doing that in alignment with working towards liberation, where we liberate our soul, our consciousness from its attachment to and identification with the form that life takes. And that's the freedom that is mysterious and words don't touch. It's experienced intuitively and directly as a merging of who and what we experience ourselves with the totality of existence as this full dynamic emptiness, as often how it's described in Buddhism and that sort of thing. So moksha is this liberation, this transcendence. And on the path that I'm on, there's different paths, but in the sort of tantric way of looking at things, that liberation also needs to be brought in and through the body. So there's no negation happening, as you can see here. We're including all these things, but with that alignment towards liberation.
So Dharma, that's the very beginning of that, or the very first gate, if I'm getting it right, is the Dharma, right? Yeah. And Dharma is, if I'm understanding, is finding your place in life. As you said, birds find their place in life by flying.
They don't even have to find it. They just
are it.
They are it.
So in 2019, when people go into work and they're punching in and punching out, and they're kind of going through the motions a lot of the hours of life, how does a person begin to look for their Dharma? Yeah,
that's a really good question. And it starts with questioning, just questioning. And we have to really check in with ourselves, you know. There's a series of questions that I often give to clients that are to help them. I use the term uncovering your heart's vision for life, but it's uncovering your Dharma in a way, you know. And some people are already smack dab right in their natural place, right in their Dharma, and they just haven't realized it. And their sense of unhappiness or discontent is coming from just stuff they need to process within. Other people, their discontent is because they're actually misaligned in terms of what they're doing in life. And the funny thing about Dharma is it's paradoxical, because in one sense, you can never not be living your Dharma. Otherwise you wouldn't be there. Yeah. But you still, that's the paradox of life. This mysterious paradox is that you still have to do the work and ask these questions. And if you discover you're not living your Dharma, then it's your Dharma to discover what your Dharma is. Right?
Wow. That's deep.
Yeah. Yeah.
I like that. And I feel like the majority of people that I've spoken to, from what you've described Dharma being, I can go out on a limb and think that most people have experienced even a glimpse of that, like you said, down to the cellular level, that feeling of energy throughout your body when you're living it. Most people that I've spoken to have a story or have a moment in their life when they were able to have that, at least that experience. And I imagine that from what you're saying, that's coming through living your life's mission through your Dharma. So if we can figure out what those moments are, maybe start to put the pieces together and say, oh, maybe this is what lights me up. This is what I'm meant to move forward with and give back to the world. Something like that.
Yeah. Well said. It's a delightful puzzle. If we can look at it as play, as Leela, as they call it, the divine play, then it makes everything better. And that's my constant work, is to try and keep light like that. Because when we can easily get bogged down, it's all so serious, right? It's a big deal. Yeah. Seems like such a big deal. This is my life and what happened, and you know, and of course that too. Yeah. Got to honor those emotions, but to step back and see the perspective, like, you know, actually a human life's pretty short in the big scope of things. And, you know, this is one grand big play that we're all a part of. So it can be fun to discover and piece these things together. Yeah. And I like the what you mentioned about asking questions. If you feel like, well, your Dharma, you are living your Dharma regardless. And maybe your Dharma is just to find out what your Dharma is, which I love. And we can begin to ask ourselves questions. So what are some ways that people can begin asking questions or begin looking for those avenues that they can go down in order to find that inspired self, to find that inspired way of living? Journaling is a number one, because you don't need anybody else. Most people can afford or somehow get a hold of a pen and paper and do some reflecting. Yeah, you can come up with your own questions. When do I feel passionate about these things, or about life? You know, what makes me excited? Yeah. One of the keys I always find is pointing people back to their younger years to see what really, because oftentimes people have been so conditioned over their life and they're so numb and there's so much confusion that they've forgotten, but they can remember their childhood, you know, and there's certain essences there sometimes, a lot of the time, that remind you about, oh yeah, I used to love animals. Yeah, maybe I should just, you know, start volunteering in an animal shelter. Just take one step. That's it. You know, just do that. You don't have to quit your job right away. You know, just take little steps, integrated steps. Yeah. So I definitely encourage people not to, in the past for myself, I used to make these big sweeping changes, you know, and the pendulum would swing, and then I always had to go back and make up for the steps I missed. So doing it in an integrated step-by-step way, starting with asking questions, making little incremental changes in your life if you need to. Yeah. And everybody needs relationship and community and people that are also doing that work. So seek out in whatever way you can, whatever the best version of that is that you can find in your present life circumstances, free or paying for it, whatever is available to you, do your best and find people you can have these honest discussions with. We need that reflection back from each other.
Yeah. I couldn't agree more with that statement. The need for community to find, and you said it, like whatever you gravitate to most, whatever seems to match up with you the most, just find some way to speak to other people and get out of your echo chamber and have other people to give you constructive feedback.
To give you constructive feedback.
Yeah.
It's your echo chamber.
Yeah, there you go. I love it. So with because you do a lot of one-on-one coaching with people.
Yes, I do.
I remember when I took your men's group. There was a few of us we'd get together. What was it? Every Monday night? No, every Friday night.
It was Friday nights. Yeah.
Friday night. Yeah. We would do something different, and I didn't really know what I was getting into, but it was always interesting because every week was different. And some of the things, you brought in some different teachers, and a lot of it was very cathartic. A lot of it was getting out of your mental and into your physical. And one of the things I really enjoyed was the meditation when I'm going to get it wrong. So you did this chant, and you would, remember when you brought your hands up and then you brought your hands back down, and you would feel the energy being brought into your midsection.
Yeah.
So what is it about sitting in that moment of peace and stillness, and trying to focus your energy on harnessing? I'm not even sure if it really is energy, or if it's just kind of a metaphor or whatever it was. What is it about that that's so empowering? Because I did feel when I left every Friday night, I felt the difference after having done that.
Right. Okay. I'll try and keep this brief and simple explanation. In the yogic science, they look at us as having 5 bodies.
Okay.
3 personal bodies and 2 transpersonal bodies. The physical body, which is the cellular food body, right? The emotional body, which is the prana, the life force energy.
I've heard that word before.
Prana, chi, ki, life force, that biomagnetic energy.
Yeah.
And science now can actually show it. They can, it's there. It's not false. It's a real thing, and it's a felt experience. And that's what we were working with there when we're moving our hands and feeling the energy.
Right.
We're working with our pranamaya kosha, which is our kosha or sheath or body, which is made up of prana.
Okay.
So, and these sheaths aren't separate. They're unified, but they have differences. So it works from the most subtle to the most dense, gross thing. The most subtle in life informs the most dense. Does that make sense? So the pranamaya kosha is what we were working with there. We're feeling the prana between our hands. We're opening our hands as we breathe in, continuing to feel between the palms of the hands.
Yeah.
Clearing through our whole pranic field, clearing out blockages. Our hands have this capacity to channel and move prana. And then breathing out, bringing the hands back down around. And we're actually covering all our chakras. The energy centers or wheels where the pranic pathways meet. They're like the arteries of the pranic field.
Gotcha.
So we're actually working with that subtle life force energy. Prana, anu in Sanskrit means atom or matter, and pra means prior to. So prana is that which was prior to matter.
Right.
To physical matter. So prana itself is this undifferentiated life force, electrical energy. It's the substance of life. When we feel inspired, when we feel that aliveness, it's a form of prana moving in our system.
I like that.
Right? And so that informs our physical body. So when we have blockages in our pranic system based on emotional traumas and things that haven't been cleared, and the food we're eating and the environments we're in, then that can become physical dis-ease, discomfort, sickness, all these things. It informs that. And we can use our mind to direct the prana. The prana itself is undifferentiated, but the mind, that intelligence channels it. When we bring our attention into our hands, we're we're circulating prana in our hands. We're directing the prana to different areas.
Right.
So that's kind of what we were doing in that work.
Right.
And everything is prana and vibration, sound. It's all different expressions of that.
So is it fair to say that prana is the limitless potential of energy in the future, or the limitless potential of creation, I guess, whatever that driving force behind creation is?
Yeah, it is the arising of energy in the universe. That's my understanding of it at this moment in time.
Cool.
And yeah, you're right. I've often thought that too. Like, we can tap into it, I'm sure.
Yeah.
We can tap into it with our human physical bodies. There must be a way to replicate that and tap into it to generate light and power and, yeah. Don't tell big oil.
Oh man, they're listening.
They're going to burn our houses down. Whatever they did to Tesla, they'll do worse, I'm sure.
Geez, yeah. Not my place. Come on. So with your own journey, because you mentioned you have a good deal of mentors and teachers in your life, and you're always learning, you're always discovering new things on your own path. But you've been on this path for a while, and I'd be very interested to know where you are today. What are some of the biggest life lessons? What are some of the biggest takeaways from going down this path and everything you've learned to this point? What are some things that you've brought in and seen as truths?
Well, there's universal truth, and then there's finite truth.
Okay.
Another quote from Maitreyi, she says, "The opposite of a universal truth is another universal truth." And the opposite of a finite, limited truth is a lie, really, in a way. If you look at the opposite, or in somebody else's mind, that might be another truth too, depending on what lens you're looking through.
Right.
So, but finite truths are good too. Universal truths are great too, but we need both of those. Some lessons and truths. The biggest one for me throughout my life has been humility. Mm-hmm. And I'm still really working with that. And I think maybe more so for men in our culture, humility is more challenging, because we're supposed to know everything and run our life, and we're supposed to be fired up, and and it's kind of like, well, no, I actually don't know anything.
You can say shit.
I don't know shit. And maybe someone else has something to say that could help me.
Yeah. And
maybe what they're saying isn't an attack and a threat to my self-worth.
Yeah.
And my belief system, So humility for me has been this process and learning of opening myself to the possibility that I might be wrong about everything, and that there's always something else I can learn. From another level too, it's the process of coming into my body and being more human, humility and humor, all these things, they relate. So the more I can keep it light and be human and be in my body, the more I've been able to cultivate humility.
Yeah.
So that's been a really big one. And the other one is just, this foundational thing of like, when in doubt, soften your edges and do your best to respond in a loving and kind way, no matter what, do your best. Now, for people that are already really sensitive and soft, I'll tell you, don't do that. Harden up and get some boundaries. But I think, probably more for the audience that this is probably speaking to, which is probably more men who are focused on physical, fitness and that kind of thing. Yeah. It's probably a good idea to soften a bit more and open to the possibility that maybe your girlfriend is way smarter than you.
Yeah.
And maybe she's more subtle than you are, and she lets you talk a lot because she loves you. And in one way, she admires that about you too. It's that polarity between men and women, but to tune in and consider that.
We're in this time right now that's really interesting,
how do you show up as a guy? How do you show up as a man? How do you show up? Like, what does it mean to be a man in 2019? What does it mean to be a woman in 2019, where lines are starting to be blurred? More than likely for more good than bad, but that can really start to cause people to have a bit of an existential crisis. You know, how am I supposed to contribute to the world if what I was told I was meant to be is kind of being dissolved into this new way of being a man in 2019, or this new way of being a woman in 2019. And humility, I think, is a big answer to that, which is just trying to peel back all of these things that you believe that you're supposed to bring to the world, and then just bring what you actually genuinely have to offer. You know, think, okay, well, this is something that I actually feel from my heart that I'm able to contribute back to the world, not because I feel like other people want me to contribute it. It's being genuinely inspired from you know, the depths of your being, kind of thing. Is that
well said?
Oh.
Well said. I mean, what you said is fantastic. This is a huge question in our time and age, right? All these gender roles are being shattered, and it's really people's minds. It's the collective consciousness about what a man is, what a woman is. There's no real lines. There's always been this. Okay, reality is the interplay of opposites and everything in between those extreme opposites. So there's the extreme man, and there's the extreme woman. You know, whatever that is. You can look at those two extremes: extreme masculine, extreme feminine, and everything in between. Yeah, that is the nature of reality, and it expresses through human beings as well as everything else. It's all possible. Yeah. And it's all part of the play of existence. So we need to be able to open up our scope to at least be able to accept and allow others to express how they want to, number one. And then number two, for me, I think there's too much focus given on the question, what is it to be a man and what is it to be a woman? And not enough given to who am I and what is my essence? And what feels good in my body right now, and forgetting about this trying to define yourself. It's just another line in the sand that will get washed away by the next tide. Right. So for the long term, it's better to say moment to moment, how am I feeling and how do I want to express myself right now? And then there's this constant learning and refinement as you go. If I want to attract a mate into my life, there's the play of polarity and attraction, and it's a fun game to play. And everybody has a different, some people want that really strong polarity and strong sexual charge in the relationship. And so they'll play the extreme poles, whether it's a man expressing the quote unquote feminine and a woman expressing the masculine, or vice versa. And some people aren't, the sexual part isn't as important. They want more a companion who's neutral with them, and it's more about the love and the union. So, and everything in between. So it's more about who am I and how am I feeling to express myself? What's my natural expression right now? As you said, in the moment. That brought back what you were saying earlier about Dharma, which is to live whatever your life's mission is, or whatever you're most inspired to perform in the world. And when you were talking about how to express yourself in the moment, I was thinking about Dharma because, well, Dharma, to express yourself authentically and to show up in the world, in my mind, I think of like this life's work, this an inimaginable amount of time devoted to one task. But you could also wind up 20 years down the road having devoted yourself to something, thinking that it was your life's work, only to wake up one day and realize that you weren't living out of inspiration. You were living out of momentum to achieve something that you 20 years ago thought was a great idea. And now realizing I probably should have picked something different, So what you had mentioned just a second ago, which is how do I feel like expressing myself today, I think is an important
question to ask on a regular basis, so that you're not carrying forward into the world just this great big momentum from a choice that you made 5, 10, 15 years ago, whether that's in your job, in a relationship, or whatever, however it shows up, to ask yourself that question on a regular basis. How am I feeling right now? What is inspiring me right now? And letting that be at least a little bit of a guide stone.
Yeah, you're right. Nonetheless, it's also important to focus and stick with things, right? And so there's always this balance. But everything's subject to change, you're right.
Yeah.
And the work never stops.
Yeah.
The old quote about the unexamined life is not worth living.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
Of course. And we need to be comfortable in change and realize that there are forces greater than our own personal will. We're part of these natural forces.
Yeah.
And when you are misaligned with that, you get a lot of what's happening in the current crisis on our planet, where it's a lot of individuals forming this collective consciousness that is misaligned with, yet it is the Dharma of the planet, yet it needs to be repaired and refigured.
Yeah.
We're really talking about individual choice in alignment with something greater. Right? So there's individual choice where we're making only our personal will happen. And then there is personal will aligned with these greater forces where we're moving with the river of life. All the wisdom, the timeless wisdom points to this, moving with the river, the flow of life. Row, row, row your boat gently down the stream, but look out for rocks. A friend and I were joking about that just last night. They need to add that. If you hear a kid singing "Row, row, row your boat," and and look out for rocks, right? But to at least contemplate the fact that there might be a will, for lack of a better word, that we can align with, that is greater than our own personal will, but that we can join our own personal will with, and therefore have greater success in every endeavor, more harmony, more flow. But we have to give up these impressions in our psyche and all our conditioning and all the things we hold so tightly to. We have to be willing to let all of that be ripped away.
Right.
In order to have this higher alignment, quote unquote, higher alignment. It's a more natural alignment. And it takes into account the well-being of all of existence, not just your own well-being.
Right.
So to hold that intention at the very least, to align with what's best for all beings, all of life, and then to start looking at, well, where am I pushing? You can start to feel, where am I pushing against the river? When you swim against the current in the water, you can feel it. So start getting sensitive to that in life. There's signs, I'm trying to make this happen. For some reason, it's not. Am I going to keep pushing, get sick? That's a sign. If I'm getting sick, I need to slow down. I'm doing something against the natural flow, against the greater cosmic will, the greater river. Somebody's telling me no over and over again. Okay, it's good to be persistent, but maybe I should consider taking another route. There's all these things that come up, and we can stop, reevaluate, and take our time. We're so chaotic and in a rush these days that we don't even stop and go, well, where is the flow moving? How can I join with it?
Yeah.
And like you said, there is that momentum based on past, what they would call karma in the yogic way of looking at things, where we've planted all these seeds and taken actions and created things, and then we're riding that wave, we're reaping what we've sown, but we can stop. There's balancing forces. It's challenging, but we can stop and reevaluate and make new choices. But it requires a lot of inner work, and it requires help and guidance and study and practice, inner practice. So there's a lot, I know, but
everything that you just said about flowing with the river and how you could feel the metaphor of flowing down a river. If you went against the current, you'd be able to really feel that, and you should be able to, if you listen, feel that same going against the current of life. You just mentioned a second ago, taking a moment to listen. And for me in my own life, the way that I've been able to cultivate some form of listening is through meditation in the morning. Every morning, The second thing I do, I read first. I used to do it the other way around, but I find that when I read and then meditate, my mind is a little bit more still for whatever reason. So meditation has really allowed me to bring that into my own life, which is to take a step back from all the chaos of life just for a moment and focus on what the inner world is like, the inner thoughts, the inner emotions, maybe some memories that are kind of jumbling around in there. And like you say, tune into, is what I'm doing right now, is how I'm waking up in the morning with whatever momentum I'm carrying from yesterday. Is that going with the current? Or does it feel like it's going against the current? I don't know if you've felt similar things with your own practice or helping other people through theirs, but that's something that's really lent itself to my life.
Yes, well said, for sure. And having a consistent practice where you're finding that inner attunement and alignment, where you're at least got a baseline of awareness of your mind, which is images and thoughts, your emotional life, your feelings, and your physical body. You at least have some awareness of that, or start to cultivate the capacity to stop in a few times a day at least, and check in with what's my mind doing, what's my emotional state, how's my body feeling, what do I need right now. Am I going against the flow or with the flow? Does this feel aligned? Intuition is a real thing. It's not a airy fairy idea. It's a sense that's real. And I know most people have experienced it. So it's not like something you have to really convince a lot of people of. But we can cultivate that muscle and make it stronger. And that's when synchronicity and life gets really exciting when you start doing that. Really beautiful.
It really does. Synchronicity, I can't remember who said this, and if you're listening, I apologize. Someone told me that when you experience synchronicity, it means that you're on the right path. More often than not, anyhow, you're on the right path. And it's been my experience that when I do experience synchronicities, things are beginning to align for whatever reason.
Things are flowing harmoniously with the greater river, right?
Yeah.
Things are brought to you because you're moving in the direction that you're being carried.
The thing I like to think about often is if you look at nature, right? So if you look at the grand scheme of the universe, everything's moving, or at least we think it is, moving towards entropy, right? We are, all energy is moving to a standstill eventually. Trillions of years into the future, everything will just be at an energetic zero. Except for one thing, which is life. Life is one thing that continues to get more complex as time goes on, which I find really fascinating. And if you look at life, which is forever moving to more complex creatures, and you look at the inert, dead vastness of the universe, which is forever moving towards a zero energetic state, the one thing that they have in common is they try to find the path of least resistance. So evolution takes the path of least resistance, seemingly, and the inert deadness of the world takes the path of least resistance as well. So water always finds the easiest path to the lowest level. Lightning always finds the easiest path to the to ground, that sort of thing. But
human beings like banging their head against the wall.
Well, that's just it. That's kind of where I'm going with the whole thing is when I found in my own life, when you have an intention, maybe you have an intention of getting a specific job or something in life that you want to have experience of. If you set yourself up in such a way where you become the easiest avenue for that to happen, those synchronicities start to show up and guide you toward whatever it is that you're after, or whatever the circumstances are. And it seems to me that it's because you're becoming this easy path for creation to happen, for whatever, like the prana that you're speaking about, this vastness of creative potential that needs avenues in order to manifest. you're aligning yourself as the easiest path for that to take form, to take shape.
Yes.
Yeah. So what I want to bring this all back to, because you've been a teacher of mine, I've learned quite a bit from you, from your classes, but also just as a general human being. You have this lightness to you. You have this like happiness, like joy, but a realistic joy, if that makes sense. Like you're not just happy for the sake of being happy. It seems like it's like an energetic quality of you. So I've learned a lot from you, but I know that you're also you teach both in one-on-one coaching and in classroom settings. So what does that look like, and what are the types of people that really benefit from that?
Okay. Well, first of all, thanks for what you said about me.
I mean it. So
yeah. It's really nice. And I know there's a lot of people in the spiritual world that, when you receive a compliment, you should, no, it's not me. Don't identify with it. And on one level, that's true. But I also think compliments are really nice. Yeah. And I appreciate that.
I'm happy to say it because I really do genuinely mean it. So
thank you. So what the work looks like is, so I work with clients. I do in-person sessions in North Vancouver with people on Mondays. I work with people online, video calls, and I do on the phone too, depending on what's wanted and needed. Yeah. And with one-on-one clients, it's this integration of worldly success and spiritual success and everything in between. And we use yogic practices. We use different coaching processes. I'm trained in this work called Accelerated Evolution with my mentor, Satyen Raja. And then my own experience and intuitive capacities that I'm trying to get better at every day. Yeah. Right. So it's all those things. And the people that I work with, when I'm working in person with people, a part of that is also what my teacher, Maitreya, calls multi-dimensional healing, which is actually using prana. Like I'm like a conduit of prana. It's that channel that it moves through, and I help clear blockages in people's emotional, energetic body. Yeah. That's part of it, which also helps often clear physical stuff as well. So all of those things and everything in between. So I get my client spectrum is pretty wide. Right. From people that are looking to deepen a meditation and yoga practice, to people that have physical or health challenges, to entrepreneurial people that want help using some of this inner metaphysical, esoteric stuff to have greater success, more happiness, more time, more space, more purpose, more joy, less suffering, and more money too. And then to use that money for something good. Yeah. So all these things. And then in terms of a group setting, I teach studio yoga classes where with Arkaya, my teacher Maitreya, Yogacharini Maitreya, is the founder of Arkaya, and it's classical yoga and tantra. The right-hand path of tantra, which is called Dakshina Marga. It's not the sort of skewed Western version, which is all about sex and relationship. It includes that, but it's not just that. Right. It's really about the balancing of opposites within us, the masculine, feminine within, and purifying and refining our senses, and transcendence happening in and through the body. So that's the path, and I'm still very much a baby in that. And so I'm doing my best also to bring that kind of yoga into studio settings and put it into a 1 to 1.5 hour class or a 3 hour workshop for people to get a taste. Right. And then I assist Maitreya. I'm apprenticing with her. I assist her with training new Arkaya teachers, and we have a new training once a year in Vancouver. It's basically a year-long program with 4 modules and mentorship and all that. And then we're also having a 33-day teacher training retreat at an Ayurvedic healing center in South India next January. So that's another thing that I'm excited about.
That sounds incredible.
Yeah, that's going to be amazing. And then the men's work, where the focus for me has always got to come back to practice, a quote unquote spiritual practice. What does that mean? Yeah. It's a practice that realigns your personal will with the greater will, and helps you process emotion and be a more open channel so that life can move through you. Yeah. That's what a spiritual practice is, basically. So that's the foundation to me for a successful life. Dharma, Artha, Kama, Moksha, all those things in there, where we're living our purpose, having worldly success, fulfilling our desires, all aligned with this practice that leads us towards liberation, which is, according to the sages, hundreds, maybe thousands of lifetimes of work.
Yeah.
So, I'm trying to get started.
Yeah, I got nothing but time.
Yeah. Yeah. And then, so the men's work is like, we start, like, as you know, we start with the practice, but then what a men generally in our society want to do, they want to be accountable to each other in a men's group. They want to talk about their goals and their mission. But also we need to, as men, I think we're evolving. We need to cultivate those soft skills more too, become more subtle and attuned, learn how to play the feminine, become balanced human beings and express, okay, where it's a men's group because everyone in here has a penis. Let's be honest. That's what's required to get in. Right. And actually, I don't know, maybe if someone did tell me they identified as a man, I'd probably just say, yeah, okay, you're in then. If you identify as a man, you're in the men's group.
Sure. If you feel like you identify as someone who wants to do men's work, you feel a calling to do whatever it is that men's work in 2019 is, because maybe men's work needs some clarification, which is men's work, at least to me, is doing your best to go through processes that are guided by other men in your group to learn what it is that is aiding you to show up as a man and what is preventing you from showing up as a man, and going through all of those processes. And like you say, for a lot of people, a lot of guys, what that is bringing more of the feminine in, because we've swung so far the other way. In the group that you led, it was really interesting to watch. You mentioned a little while ago about play. It was really interesting to watch when, like a blank canvas was brought out with some paint, and the tradition, it's like, okay, we're going to free paints, like just paint freely and like paint your emotions. And I'm sure every guy in the back of their mind is like, oh, this is some hippie ass bullshit. But it feels amazing to allow yourself to do that, because as a guy, you don't allow yourself to play. You don't allow yourself to go through these cathartic therapeutic exercises. And when you finally allow yourself to do it, it really opens up areas of your mind, areas of your heart that were completely shut off before.
That's right. I think our focus should be not on showing up better as men, but showing up as complete human beings, whole human beings. We have a left brain, masculine, and we have a right brain, feminine. Yeah. And if we're not using our full capacity, we're incomplete. We're not whole. We're not using everything. Yeah. So everything else is just conditioning and gobbledygook. Mm-hmm. I'm a guy. I don't do that shit. No, you've got a block around it, because it's the plight of the man in this day. This patriarchal society has really hurt men. Yeah. And that's why men have done so much damage. It's really sad. And so I'm not making fun. I'm poking fun, but I'm not making fun. Yeah. It's like, it's a real thing. Yeah. And we need to address it. And it's not that we shouldn't maybe play more to the masculine in our lives and be men in that sense, because that's also true. Yeah. But we need to be able to use our right brain and tap into the feminine when it's appropriate, and to be able to play and bring lightness and to be complete, full human beings.
I couldn't agree more. So to bring it all back around to what it is that you do, for people who are looking to find out how they can bring more of that play into their life, how they can learn how to do this balancing act between the masculine and feminine, whether they're too feminine or too masculine, or I shouldn't say too feminine or too masculine, but whether they feel like they're expressing too much of their feminine or too much of their masculine, and whether they feel like they have some of these blockages, whether it's through their Dharma or through their, what's the other one? Artha, and they're probably not at Moksha yet, but but whether it's through either one of those things, trying to bring those into balance, this is something that you facilitate either through one-on-one coaching or through your group.
Or through group sessions, So
if someone wants to find you.
My website is rossmckeachie.com. So it's ROSS MCKEACHIE.com. IE.com. So I realized I got to find a better URL because, spelling my last name. But on Facebook, you can look for my page. It's at Ross Integrative Coaching. .com.
Integrative Coaching.
Or you could always try Google search. Don't know how high I'm up on the searches. You could do Ross Integrative Coaching and Healing and try Ross M something,
I'll tell you what, for this particular episode, there will be links anyways.
Awesome.
So if anyone's listening and they want to check out Ross, sorry, I should reframe that. All of you who are listening who are like, man, I can't wait to check out Ross's website. The link is in the description of this particular episode.
I can't wait to meet you.
Awesome. Well, Ross, I really do appreciate your time, man. I've learned a lot over the years of knowing you. You and I were in high school together, played on the rugby team briefly together. It's been a real pleasure to see you evolve into the amazing, energized, spiritual, creative human being you are today. So thanks for the interview. And if there's anything else that you'd like to share, I'd love to give you the opportunity to do right now.
I just want to say thanks to you, Taylor. And it's been a pleasure watching your evolution too. And anybody who's listening to this, Taylor is also a wonderful coach and trainer, and he's got a lot of wisdom, and he's a real, vulnerable, honest human being. And I think to me, that is the indicator of a true helper and guide, is someone who's continually doing their own work, looking at their own shadow and being real. So hats off to you for that too.
Well, I appreciate you, Ross. Thank you for that. I'm going to do my best to accept the compliment as well now. Thanks, brother.
You're welcome.
As always, thank you so much for taking time out of your day to listen to this episode of the Power Plant Body Podcast. If you learned something from Ross and got some value, and I know you did, I'd be grateful if you shared this with your friends and your family who would also enjoy it. To learn more about Ross and his online and in-person coaching, check out his website at www.rossmckeachie.com. And I know there's no way you're going to be able to spell that, so let me spell that out for you. That's www.rossmckeachie, Mckeachie. Say that again, www.rossmckeachie.com. And actually, one of the best places to get in touch with Ross is via Facebook, on his Facebook page at facebook.com, of course, /Ross Integrative Coaching. So that's RossIntegrativCoaching. Ross Integrative Coaching. Now, if you'd like to connect with me, you can head over to powerplantbody.com. That's POWERPLANTBODY.com, or follow me on Instagram @TheVeganTrainer. And remember to subscribe to the Power Plant Body Podcast so that you know whenever a new episode drops with a really great teacher like Ross. And now I like to end all of these episodes with my favorite quote. It's by Mark Twain. He said that the secret to success is just getting started. So that goal that you're working on, that vision of yourself that you want to bring into reality, now's the time to go out there and get started.